In 2016, my film, The Pearl of Africa, premiered on Netflix. It was a dream come true. But it was difficult to get there. Funding fell through time and again. I often wonder if I was just chasing a naive dream. Could a small-time filmmaker from Sweden really attract Hollywood? Despite the lack of confidence, I risked my life to tell a story that put me on the edge of financial ruin. Let me tell you how I made it happen. Since I was in film school, I've had a dream of telling my stories.
Okay, so we are on our way. Get your window up, sir. Do you even know about audio? Put your window up.
Silently, I dreamt of directing my movies, but I was too afraid to take the leap. I wanted to make a movie where I would travel with a refugee to their new country. I wanted to be up close because you rarely get to see that. I started researching the topic and I realized that back when I had been making music videos for Ugandan artists, there was this weird homophobic tendency that I didn't really understand.
Thousands of anti-gay protesters demonstrate in Jinja, Uganda, in support of a bill proposing life imprisonment for homosexuals.
So I kept researching. I got more and more intrigued. It seemed like a really strong angle, and it had massive global appeal.
Life in prison for any homosexual act, as well as execution for what the bill calls aggravated homosexuality.
A few years back, I had co-directed a documentary for TV, and I noticed how important timeliness and societal relevancy was for global success. And for this project, I was dreaming of getting it onto Netflix. But I had no contacts, no resources, it was just me. Started to look for subjects, and I found this amazing love story about a couple who fled Uganda when they had started to attack homosexuals around the country. Both had fled on separate occasions, without knowing where the partner had ended up. They then found each other in a magazine where they realized that both had landed in Sweden. And they eventually went to go get married, and this got a lot of global attention in the media, at least in the LGBTQ media around the world. This was an amazing story that I wanted to explore. I met with the subject and I wrote a synopsis. Then I applied to a filmmaking development program and I got accepted. I was on my way. I had been looking on Netflix for stories.
Point is not the death penalty. The point is what they do in our country.
Even though there was a lot of buzz around the issues of homosexuality in Uganda, there was nothing on Netflix. I realized that this was perfect for them. So I created a pitch and sent it off to funders, hoping that they would love the idea as much as me. But then, Call Me Cucho was released.
I have to pretend to be what I'm not.
We cannot allow the pillar of our culture to be destroyed by civilization from the West.
A film that told the story of the exact same conflict I was documenting. It was a big hit, and the topic was so similar that I started to worry it had killed my chances. I had to make a tremendously hard decision. Either continue making my film, risking not being able to sell it, or finding a completely fresh angle to the whole situation. I knew that if I was to realize my dream of making a film that would get onto Netflix, I had no other choice but to start over. Simply telling a story that is good is not enough. It has to be so unbelievably good that you can't stop thinking about it. So I started researching various angles of the story. And after some digging, I realized that there was a small trend in transgender topics. It was still very small, and Caitlyn Jenner hadn't come out yet. I felt like this could be a unique story if I could find a subject. But I had no connections to this story. Let me know in the comment section what you think is the most difficult part of making your documentary. So I started to contact lots of NGOs in Uganda to see if there were any subjects that I could talk to. I was able to get a really good relationship with one NGO that was offering to help me out if I got there. But at the same time, I was rejected funding from the Swedish Film Institute. Time and money was running out. But I realized that I either had to fund the trip myself or the project would die. This is how my films often start. I get rejected, nobody believes in my ideas. You always need to prove your idea's potential. Because the gatekeepers are zombies. Even though it was uncomfortable, I decided to put myself on a plane. I paid to make the project happen. Because I think that's vital if you want to make the films that you want. That's the way you get to tell your stories. It is on you to figure out how to do that. I got to Uganda and I was introduced to Cleo, who became the star of the documentary. She was hesitant. It was a terrible first shoot. But I sensed that there was a story there. I got fascinated by the great relationship with her siblings and mom, and that her dad hated her life choice. It felt like there was something there, enough to want to make a film. I was going to make a film about a child and a mother's relationship, as the child transitioned from a boy to a girl. This was an amazing story.
Once, my dad caught me when I was cross-dressing, and he got really mad. I remember he beat me up with a metal bar.
Some months later, I was chasing funding to go back, when news came that there was a massive attacks on LGBTQ people in Uganda.
Anti-gay protesters shouted slogans and waved placards in what was dubbed the Million Man March against homosexuality.
On Friday, the week the bill was passed, I was on the front page of the right people. For the past month and a half, we've been living behind a closed gate, closed windows.
Cleo told me that she was going into hiding and that we couldn't film for a while. At the time, I kept making ads in Sweden to self-fund the project because I kept getting rejected funding. I was increasingly worried about Cleo, who I hadn't heard from in a while. To tell you the truth, I was considering giving up on the whole project. I wasn't sure it was worth trying to chase a naive dream of making a film on a shoestring budget and selling it to Netflix. But after some time, things calmed down a bit, and Cleo was feeling okay to film again. So I got on a plane and went to Kampala. As I got there, I realized that the story had changed. The mom didn't want to be in the film. And now, Cleo had met a guy who had moved in with her. This time, I had to be cautious filming, so I decided to live with Cleo. Nelson was hard for me to get a grasp of.
Okay, you see now this LGBTIO has reached a point whereby everyone is tired of fighting.
He was silent and shy. Cleo was the opposite, outspoken and loud. Once again, I was questioning if I'd made the right choice to pursue this filmmaking dream. But I was there, so I continued to film. I was thinking that maybe I could convince her mom to be in the film. Maybe this trip would just be a way to build that relationship trust. But during the week, I could see glimpses of Cleo and Nelson's relationship. There was something in there, something I hadn't thought about. I realized that I'd found a new story, one about forbidden love. This is how I find my story. It eventually became a tale about their love, where I went on the journey with them. From meeting Cleo in Uganda for the first time, to finding her partner, to them fleeing the country, to her going to Thailand with her partner, risking her life to transition into a woman. Discovering a story is complicated. It never happens overnight. But one thing that I've learned from doing this for over 20 years is that the zombies that reject your projects know nothing about what works. Remember that. It is up to you to discover what works by exploring topics on your own. Unfortunately, few people understand that. So what do you think is the most difficult thing about finding a story? Comment below. After you have your story though, you need to learn how to pitch. This is where I can help you. I've created an ebook, Cracking the Netflix Code, insider tips on how to pitch and sell your documentary like a pro, filled to the brim with insider knowledge that I've gained from selling my films to Netflix and other networks. Just click the link in the description to learn more about how you can turn your film into a global success. Now, question of the day. Comment below if you want your question featured in a coming video. Could you share any tips to help find the balance, capturing emotional, high-tension moments, but still show respect to the person? So this is something that happens in every film, I think. If it doesn't, it probably needs some more love. In The Pearl of Africa, there was so many of these moments because it was an emotional, personal story. It often comes down to being patient though. You need to take an observational approach to filming so you can become like a fly on the wall. And you need to learn how to talk to people about like sensitive things without them being uncomfortable. I think you want to build so much trust that the characters, they let you tell their story. Cleo didn't want to see the film before it was released, but she had seen like a web series that we'd done before the feature film. But on another film that I'm making right now about a marathon runner, he wants to sit in the edit. And I wouldn't recommend that. Like, you want to respect the people and you want to tell their story. And the way that I think you best do that is by knowing them so you can be their voice, or that you can be like able to make the right decisions that they will be okay with. There was one situation in The Pearl of Africa, for instance, that I worried because I put it in and they didn't see the film. And they were joking, it's one of the best moments, everybody laughs in the theater every time. I knew that was the potential of the scene, but I didn't know if that would happen. So I put it in to cut the short story. Cleo says something about a blowjob on Nelson, creates this funny scene where Nelson realizes that I'm filming at the time and Cleo says that to him, so it becomes this meta scene, and where we acknowledge the audience being there and that, you know, this is a hilarious moment. That had such a big impact in the theaters, and they loved it. But I was so unsure that they would. And I did not know. I was worrying about that scene the most. And it seemed like such a little thing for me as well. But I knew that these things, if you see yourself in a certain way, these scenes are the ones that they will want to take out if they're in the edit with you. Because it's weird, they don't know how the audience is going to react. So they probably pick it out rather than daring to keep it in. And I think that's the worry when you have people in the edit. You will try to take things out and it will become very much more fluffy. Like it won't have the big impact as it would otherwise, because it's not as real, it's too polished. And this, I think, is the big problem that you can see when you have athletes or when you have artists and that sort of thing be part of the process of making their documentaries. It becomes too polished, like a song that is too polished. It loses its soul. That's what I want to avoid. But some projects you're forced to do that if you want to tell that story. And I'm totally fine with that being the case, but I just want to address that that is an issue that you're going to face when you go about it that way. Earn trust so they will just give you free range to tell the story as you see it. If you want to learn more about how I sold my film to Netflix, then check out this video.